Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to bring you another college football pick and prediction video. We're talking week 12 of the college football season. So, coming off another 3 and 3 week, that's 3 and 3 each of the last 2 weeks. So, 500 football is what I'm playing. Had a hotter stretch before that. Haven't had a losing week in 6 weeks, though, so that's good. 36 and 32. Am I going to hit 60%? It's getting kind of dicey, but we'll see if we can get it done. I got 6 games on tap for you in this video. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to start things off with Friday night game tonight. Clemson visiting Louisville. Louisville 3-point favorite. When I was doing this game and setting everything up, Louisville was a 3-point favorite. This has dropped to 2.5 for those of you who are interested in this game. Story in this game for me is going to be Miller Moss against the Clemson defense, particularly the pass rush. So we look at this. Miller Moss, he transferred from USC. I thought this would have been a great fit. I thought he'd have been a great fit for Jeff Brom. He had receivers. He had a running back in Isaac Brown. I thought he was going to be an explosive offense in the ACC. I talked about this in the summer. It just hasn't happened. He's 106th in the country under pressure this season. He's 123rd in explosives under pressure. Why does that matter? It matters because Clemson's sack rate is 11th in the country. They're just coming off a 6-sack game against Florida State. Sure, pressure rate 33% is about average in the country, but they're going to get some heat on Miller Moss. They're going to get home on Miller Moss, and they're going to end a lot of drives with some sacks, with some poor throws or some incompletions. Because as you can see, Miller Moss performs poorly when under pressure, but he also performs poorly when he's not under pressure. He's 95th overall in EPA, 132nd in explosives. His average depth of target is 7.5. That's 107 in the country. He's just throwing short passes. It's just no explosion in this Louisville passing game. And now they got a rebound from that loss to Cal last week, and they still have no Isaac Brown at running back. Isaac Brown, best running back in the ACC, probably the best player on this team. And now you're going against a Clemson defense that, yeah, they haven't looked as elite as we expected them coming into the season with all these NFLers they got and with Tom Allen coming over at DC, but they still have been pretty solid this year. I do think they're going to get pressure on Miller Moss. I do think they're going to make it tough for Kewan Brown to run the football. So to me, when I look at this game, I see Louisville's offense having a lot of trouble moving the football. Clemson, on the other hand, you can make an argument that they've won 5 games, that they could be on a 5-game winning streak, right? They've won 3 of the last 5, and the 2 they lost a competitive game to SMU without Cade Klubnik, with the backup quarterback in. And then they lost to Duke in absolute robbery, right? So you can make a strong argument they could have won 5 in a row, or at least won 4 of 5. So when you look at it in those terms, you could say to yourself, well, Clemson actually could be a much hotter team coming in. And if you watch the game against Florida State, these players haven't mailed it in. They love Dabo, so they're still playing. They're still giving effort. And because of that, because I think Louisville's offense really doesn't match up very well with this Clemson defense, and they're going to be hard-pressed to really move the ball in this game. Go ahead and give me Clemson with the +3. I think Clemson go into Louisville and win this game. I might do something on the money line as well. All right, moving on to the next game. We've got Texas visiting Georgia. Athens at night. Opened at 6.5. It dipped for a second to 5.5 and then went back up to 6.5. So that could say, maybe you say some sharps jumped in on Texas at +6.5 there. So for me, the story of this game is going to be who can run the football. You got 2 of the best run defenses in the country. Texas, 2nd in the country stopping the run. Legit. They've stonewalled some strong running games this season. Georgia, 12th in the country stopping the run. Also legit. They've stonewalled some strong running games this season. A strong running game is not what Texas has, though. 94th in the country running the football. They've had injuries, right? Wisner, you got C.J. Baxter. These guys have missed time. They've had to play their 3rd and 4th string running back, so that's part of it. You got to say Arch Manning taking sacks. Also, that hurts the running game in college. That's part of it. But the reality is when you watch them play and when their backs are healthy, they're still struggling. They're not really opening holes for them to run through. So Texas, all of a sudden, being able to have a lot of success on the ground against Georgia, I don't know if I see that happening in this one. On the flip side of that, Georgia, 24th in the country running the football. They don't have a dog at running back, in my opinion. But they use a committee. Gunnar Stockton runs it as the quarterback. They do end arounds, and they manufacture ways to run the football. We saw it earlier this season against Alabama. They almost ran for 300 yards in that game. So it's going to be hard pressed to run it against Texas, though. Alabama's run defense has been poor this year. Texas 2nd in the country. So is Georgia going to have the success on the ground? That remains to be seen. So then I look at Other factors in this game. Arch Manning. Arch Manning, he's been inconsistent this year. Call it what it is. Maybe we're a year off. Maybe 2026 is the year he takes off. Maybe not. He's 49th in yards per attempt, 70th in completion percentage, 74th in EPA. One of the biggest things to note is his pressure rate. He's under pressure 41% of the time. That's 123rd in the country. So he's always under pressure. That is impacting his numbers, but you call it what it is. He's also been off on some throws too. That's not necessarily going to happen in this game. Georgia's pass defense is just not your typical Georgia defense. 100th in the country in EPA allowed, 87th in explosives allowed. Their sack rate is 127th in the country. This is a game I see Arch Manning. He's going to have opportunities in this one to find players downfield. By the way, Ryan Wingo, wide receiver, he's back. Top wide receiver is back for this game. So he's got opportunities to find Wingo downfield. I think he's not going to be under as much pressure as he typically is. So this is a game that Arch, even though you say they're going against Georgia, he might have one of his better games. Flip side, Gunnar Stockton, he's having a solid year. 5th in EPA, 36th in yards per attempt at 8.1. But now Michael Taft comes back for the Texas secondary. So he's going to be hard for Gunnar Stockton to find players down the field. So this is a game where you could say I think Arch Manning might outplay Gunnar Stockton in this one. And then a big factor for Georgia this year, they've escaped some games, whether it be ball bouncing the right way, officiating. We saw an official from the Georgia-Auburn game get suspended for the season, I think it was. They said there were 8 bad calls in that game that were made by him or his crew, including I guess they're saying that QB sneak at the goal line against Auburn. It could have been 17-0. That could have been a game that Georgia lost if they called that a touchdown. Florida, receiver catches the ball late, but they rule it incomplete. Replay to me showed his arms were under it, and they still called it incomplete. If Florida catches that ball, they're in the red zone. They score late in the game. Now Georgia's down 3. I don't know if Georgia wins that game. I don't know if Georgia beats Auburn. Walk-off field goal. I know this isn't officiating. Walk-off field goal for Tennessee. They missed the kick. Georgia could have lost that game. So I look at Georgia. I say this isn't a number 5 ranked team to me. They've escaped some games that maybe they should have lost. So, and Texas on the other side, a lot of people think poorly of Texas, but they only lost 2 games. They're 10th in the country. They're right there in the mix to still make the college football playoff. So I look at this and I say Texas is better than what people think, and Georgia is not as good as what people think. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and take Texas with the +6.5. I don't know if they go into Athens and win this game at night, but I do think you're going to see one of Arch Manning's better games. All right, moving on to the next game. We've got Oklahoma visiting Alabama, keeping it in the SEC. Opened at 7, has steadily dropped down to 5.5 as Alabama favorite. I think a lot of people are feeling that Oklahoma pass rush, that Oklahoma defense. Oklahoma went into Knoxville, right? Tough place to play, Knoxville at night, and won the game. I look at this. Oklahoma's pressure, 4th in the league, or 4th in the country. Alabama giving up pressure, 52nd. That's okay, but that tells me Oklahoma's probably going to get some heat in this game on Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, when he's under pressure, 75th in the country in EPA. So he's, average at best, you could say, when he's under pressure, as you expect a lot of quarterbacks to be. Oklahoma, 21st in allowing EPA when they pressure the quarterback. So what that means is when they're pressuring, 4th in the country, they get a lot of heat. 21st on the back end, so a little worse on the back end of stopping plays. And then you got to throw in the fact, when you look at these rankings, by the way, when I do my rankings, I don't count FCS schools. I remove all of that, so that is irrelevant to me. You got to say, well, they played Kent State. That's baked in here. Kent State, they played against Auburn. Okay, they can't throw the football. That's baked into here. So really, how good are they on the back end when they're getting heat on the quarterback? That's my question. And then you say, well, see some examples of that. Trinidad Chambliss, he threw for 300 yards against Oklahoma. Joey Aguilar threw for almost 400 yards against Oklahoma. Ty Simpson is in that caliber. He's in that tier. He's a Heisman candidate. So I look at this and I say, sure, they might get some heat on Ty Simpson in this one. But Ty Simpson is going to hit some haymakers down the field in this game, in my opinion. So now can John Mateer match him? He's got moxie, tough quarterback. But 6.8 yards per attempt, that's 92nd in the country. 61% completion percentage, 90th in the country. Bama's a top 20 pass defense across the board. So I don't see Mateer being able to throw the ball at all in this game. So to me, I think this is going to be a fight because I don't think Alabama can run the ball at all, and they certainly can't run it. Aren't going to be able to run it against Oklahoma. But I think this, so I think it's going to be a fight similar to last week. Alabama had LSU was kind of a fight by the final score, 20-9, but they still covered. I think you're going to see similar situation here. I think, whoops, sorry about that. I think Alabama laying the 5.5 is the play here. I think it's going to be a competitive game, maybe won by 7-10, but I do think Alabama covers the 5.5. All right, moving on to the next game. We've got Arkansas visiting LSU. This is a rivalry game for those of you who don't know. So this game, this rivalry game is interesting in this year because you have two interim head coaches going at it. For Arkansas, you got Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino's been a head coach for college football before, been a head coach for Arkansas before a long time ago. He's got a career 64 winning percentage. He's been a good head coach, and you've kind of seen it this season. They haven't won an SEC game, but the offense is putting up points every week in and week out. These guys are moving the ball, making plays, getting in the end zone. LSU, Frank Wilson, he's been a head coach at two different stops. Hasn't been successful though. 39 career winning percentage. So I think you're seeing a big difference in the two interim head coaches in this one. That could be one of the big factors in this game. Then, LSU motivation. Let's call it what it is, right? They lose last week 20-9. It's a game I did. I took LSU with the +10. I think it was 10.5 at kickoff. Alabama covers. Alabama wins 20-9. So it's a game I got wrong, but you could say, oh, LSU was trying. They showed effort. That was something that I was concerned about. Will they show effort? And yeah, they did. They tried. But if you watch the game, Alabama could have won that game 37-9. Ty Simpson missed a couple throws. So to me, I look at it like this. They really should have been blown out by Bama, but they did try. So let's just say what it is. LSU is just not as good as we thought. They're not as good as we thought they were going to be coming into the season. They just aren't. They can't run the ball, 125th in the country. They got a quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. He just throws short passes, zero explosion in the passing game. He's been benched the last two games. They put in Michael Van Buren, erratic quarterback that if he plays the full game in this one, I'm certain he's going to turn it over a couple times. So they got a cloud around the program, right, with Brian Kelly and the lawsuit. Fans, they don't stick around for games now for whatever reason, LSU, if things aren't going well. So there's just all sorts of negativity around the LSU program right now. And this is a game, too, that is historically is tight. Last year, LSU blew them out, but the four before that, each one was decided by 3 points. Arkansas has a big advantage at head coach, has a big advantage at quarterback, and the only thing really they got going against them is the fact they have the worst defense in the SEC. But they're going against an offense that averages 19 points per game against P4 competition. No. Go ahead and give me Arkansas with the +6. I wouldn't be mad at you if you money line something on this. I might do a little straight wager money line this as well, just in case for Arkansas. But I don't like anything going on with LSU, and this is probably Arkansas's best chance at an SEC victory this season. All right, moving on to the next game. We've got Wisconsin visiting Indiana. Opened at 30.5, is now down to 28.5. Similar to a game I did last week, Ohio State versus Purdue. I laid to 29.5, a game I got wrong. They had the cover, but we saw it coming, right? Backdoor cover at the end of the game, last drive of the game. And that was a whiff. But Ohio State is different than Indiana. Ohio State, they beat you with defense. They shut you down with a great defense, and the offense kind of just throws short passes, mediocre running game, and just kind of grinds out victories, right? They're not really hitting 40 on you. Indiana, they thrown a few 50 burgers on the board. They put 63 on Illinois. Kurt Cignetti has no issue, no problem blowing you out of the water. And in this game, there's a strong opportunity for that. What is Wisconsin doing at quarterback? Are they going back to Hunter Simmons at quarterback? They started Danny O'Neal, or they played him Danny O'Neal last week. He got carted off the field, obviously not expecting him to play. I know the fans are asking for some true freshman quarterback to play. Why would you start a true freshman on the road at Indiana? That wouldn't even make it to the number 2 team in the country. That wouldn't even make sense. That's just irresponsible. You got 117th ranked running game. You got 117th ranked turnover margin per game. You got Hunter Simmons at the bottom of all the passing metrics that even matter, right? How is Wisconsin going to score? You see the metrics, you say, man, are they really that bad? They've been shut out. They got shut out back-to-back games, Ohio State and Iowa. Then they played Oregon. They scored 7. And last week, they got the big win. They beat Washington 13-10. Washington, what the hell are you doing? But they only scored 13. So to me, Indiana, this is a name your score for Indiana. I don't see how Wisconsin scores. If they do score, I don't see how they score more than 7. I think this is another 50 burger on the board. I'm going to go ahead and take Indiana, and I'm going to lay the 28.5. All right, moving on to the sixth and final game. We've got an ACC tilt, UVA visiting Duke. Duke, 4.5-point favorite. Dropped from 6.5 to 4.5. Why did it drop so much? The question is Chandler Morris playing? He got a concussion last week. What I've been reading is he's probable to play. He's leaning towards likely starting. And I always lean to the fact that, these Sharps and whoever else, they probably get some inside information that I don't really get. Me and you, we don't really get, right? So that could have been some of the reasons why some money jumped in on UVA and has dropped this line. How's Chandler Morris played this season? 70th in the country in yards per attempt, 61st in EPA, 83rd in explosives. He's just average, basically. He's been an average quarterback this season, but they've been doing enough to win games. If you've been watching UVA, though, they were kind of skating by, and then they finally lost to Wake Forest last week. Now they lose their quarterback, so that's a big part of it. But yeah, they lose to Wake for their first ACC loss last week. Duke also has one loss. Duke's been in the news, about them being the reason why the ACC might not make it to the college football playoff. If Duke ends up winning the ACC title, there's a strong chance that no ACC team is in the CFP. So this is a big game. This is a big game. Both of these teams, the loser of this game is probably out of it as far as making it to the ACC title game. The winner is still in the runnings to make it to the ACC title game. So it's about Darian Mensah and Duke, right? Darian Mensah, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Nobody really talks about. He's top 10 in explosives and EPA. He's top 25 in basically all other passing metrics. He should have success throwing the football against his UVA defense, which is just okay. But on the flip side of that, Duke's pass defense is terrible. Sure, Chandler Morris is average, but this is a game where you're going to see Chandler Morris hit some plays against these guys. You can see Virginia's running game, 38th in the country, but average 4.7 yards per carry against the 51st ranked run defense. You're going to see Virginia be able to run the ball in the game. So I think you're going to see Virginia. I think they're having balance defensively. Offensively. Duke, I don't think offensively you're going to see any balance from them. 87th ranked rush offense against the 30th ranked rush defense. So now it's just all Mensah. He can do it. He can hit plays. He can keep this game competitive. Hell, Duke could win the game. But I think this is a tight game. I like UVA with a plus 4.5. I don't know if they go in there and win it. I don't know if I would actually do a money line on this, but 4.5, I like that one. And what I expect to be a very close game. So anyway, that wraps it up. If you like the content, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that, as you're going to continue to see pick and prediction videos going forward. Take care.